All right, guys. This week we're going to be talking about the case of Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. In September of 2019, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow were found to be missing from their hometown of Rexburg, Idaho. On June 9th, 2020, their remains were found buried on their stepfather Chad Daybell's property in Salem, Madison County, Idaho, after police executed a search warrant after months of being misled by Vallow and Daybell.
But this case, I'm sure you guys have seen it in the news, and it's been developing very, very slowly for, I guess, over a year now, which seems crazy that it first broke in like late last year. And it's already the end of 2020. But yeah, that's kind of the preface of why we're going to cover this case. It's insane, and there's not really an ending to it quite yet, which we'll get to, because there have been many blocks in the road throughout the investigation, and then also there's a lot of weird sort of connected things that I find, like, as a part of the greater case, just kind of cloud the actual case of like what happened to Tylee and JJ. So anyways, just had to throw that out there.
All right, so we're going to kind of introduce our cast of characters. So Lori Vallow was born Lori Cox on June 26, 1973 in San Bernardino, California. She was married and divorced twice by age 25, and she had a son, Colby, with her second husband. In 2001, she married her third husband, Joseph Anthony Ryan Jr., who legally adopted her son, Colby, and they also later had a daughter named Tylee in 2002. Lori and Joseph's divorce was finalized by May 18th, 2005, so they were married for approximately 4 years. In 2007, Lori's ex-husband, Joseph Ryan, a lot of people I'm going to refer to by their last name.
Okay. There's a lot of, it's crazy how many people there are in this case, and none of them really share a last name, but they're like all related.
Yeah.
I was reading over the notes and I was so confused. I was like, trying to connect the dots. I'm like, okay. And they're all very like a flow chart, and they're all very generic names too. Like they're not like super unique. Like if we had like a Sebastian or like I don't know, something crazy.
Sebastian.
I don't know, something aside from like basic Ryan and Chad and Charles. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, I got you.
Continue.
In 2007, Lori's ex-husband, Joseph Ryan, was attacked by her brother, Alex Cox, in Travis County, Texas. Cox tasered him, and for this, he only served 90 days in jail. And he basically threatened to kill him, more or less. Don't forget about Alex Cox, because he kind of shows up a couple more times in the story. In 2006, less than a year after her previous divorce, Lori married Leland Anthony Vallow. And here on out, he will be referred to solely as Charles Vallow, because that's what he went by.
Again,
not really sure where he got Charles, but
like it's not even in one of his names. So his full name is Leland Anthony Vallow, and then he's just like, just kidding, my name is Charles Vallow.
I don't like
it's not one of his names. I'm so confused. He could have gone by like Tony.
not as mysterious, I guess.
Charles Vallow was a member of the LDS Church. Doesn't necessarily come up, but I think it's relevant. So JJ Vallow was adopted by Lori and Charles in 2013. JJ was Charles's grandnephew. So Charles's sister's grandson. JJ had diagnosed autism. The Vallows, so Lori, JJ, Tylee, and Charles all lived in Hawaii for about 2.5 years before moving to Chandler, Arizona. Next in our cast of characters is Chad Daybell. He was born August 11th, 1968 in Provo, Utah.
Wait, is Chad not, okay, I'm so confused. Is Chad not the same person that she married? Chad and Charles are not the same person?
No.
Okay, good to know, because sometimes you can shorten Charles for Chad. Okay, go on.
I've never heard that. Chad Daybell had thoroughly documented through books and podcasts his belief in like end times and apocalypse type stuff. And Lori shared these beliefs with him. Charles Vallow, Lori's husband currently, Charles reports that after Lori read Daybell's Standing in Holy Places book series in 2015, this is a fictional book series that Daybell wrote, she later joined him on his podcast, Preparing a People, and she became obsessed and told him she no longer cared about him, Charles Vallow, or JJ, and that she disappeared for 58 days in February 2019. Charles just reported all of this. He at one point had like written up divorce papers, but he decided to drop it. Charles Vallow died July 11th, 2019 in Chandler, Arizona. He was fatally shot by Alex Cox, Lori's brother.
So my question is, what the heck kind of like spell does Lori have over this poor brother of hers, who she basically is like, hey, these people in my life are annoying me. Can you kill them? Like, what?
I honestly think that he's just kind of trash as well. Like, I think he's just a crazy Lori Vallow, don't get me wrong, is a fucking terrible human being, but I think her brother just also happened to be. And it actually kind of sounds like a lot of her family they were like on her side for a long time. I don't know if they're currently on her side, but
my other question is, was Alex like close with her family? Because in that case, not that I'm saying that Alex should have killed him or tried to kill the other person, whoever we were talking about at the beginning, seems like a long time ago. But if he was close to them, then I could at least try to connect. Maybe he has a bad relationship with the people, like him and the Charles person used to get in a lot of fights, and so it was like a fight gone wrong. But I don't think that's the case. I feel like it's more so Lori, goes in his ear and says, hey, like, I'm really getting pissed off by this guy. Could you take him out for me? And Alex is so deranged and like thinks that it's okay, or maybe wants to, that he's like, sure, I got it. No worries, Lori. I'll take care of it for you. I don't know. It's weird to me.
I don't get. So you said that she no longer cared about Charles or JJ. Did she say anything about Tylee? Isn't Tylee her daughter?
Yeah, isn't that weird? I thought that was odd too.
Was it like a man thing? Like she was like,
it didn't have anything to do with that. It was like she literally, once she started listening to Chad's like ideas, she kind of just wholeheartedly was like on that side. And
so I wonder if the reason why she didn't mention Tylee is significantly older than JJ.
Yeah.
So she's like a teenager. And then also if you think about JJ, he had autism. So he was probably needed a little bit more care even than Tylee did.
Well, like as terrible as it sounds, Lori didn't give birth to JJ.
Oh, okay. I remember.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I can see that connection.
It's like
too.
just as an idea,
That's actually a good
I think it's probably a combination of that, and then also the fact that Tylee was a teenager. I think she was 17 when she died, so at this point she was probably 17 or so, and so she was probably doing her own thing, didn't really care about her mom either, and so she didn't even feel the need to mention her, because she was kind of off doing her own thing, as most 17-year-olds do. Okay, so he was killed by Alex. Continue, Caitlin.
So later, in March 2020, it was announced that Lori might be indicted in relation to Charles's death. We kind of could have assumed that, right? That she was kind of involved in some way.
Yeah.
There was evidence that she had purchased a wedding ring using Charles's Amazon account
for her wedding to her other man.
Yeah, it was basically
she was
she wanted to marry Chad and Charles was in the way.
But why would you buy it on his Amazon account? At least get your own Amazon account, Lord.
Bitches be crazy.
Crazy. Oh my god.
Yeah. She purchased this wedding ring 17 days before Tammy Daybell's death. This is Charles Daybell's wife.
Oh god.
So
okay.
It's kind of understood that likely, they haven't been tried for any of this, just as a disclaimer, but I don't know. I think we can have the suspicion that like they killed off their partners so they could marry each other. and
It
then
seems
probably killed off the
divorce
children as well.
obvious.
Divorce exists. You
Yeah,
can get a
don't murder
divorce,
people.
period. Done. Don't murder people. Also, did Alex ever get convicted for the murder of Charles? I believe it was Charles,
He served time in jail, I believe, but he was like a free man when he died. He died of like, I can't remember if it was a heart attack or some kind of, it was like a
Alex
natural
Cox
cause.
is also dead.
Yes,
This
he
is such a shit show.
Okay.
and actually, yeah, I get to it later, but
Okay.
he changed his name because he didn't want to be like associated with it, but he died.
Too late.
He didn't even get to testify because obviously they
Okay.
haven't had the trial yet, but
Oh.
he died already, so
So like maybe he got out on bail and then died out because you said he was free when he died, right?
well, he got like married. He married this woman and took her last name so that he kind of, I think, could distance himself from it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Weirdo. Okay.
Alex
So
Cox
At this
was
point in the story, Charles and his Charles is dead. Tammy is dead. Tammy is Chad's
Wife.
Chad Vallow.
so we're not necessarily going chronologically. I'm kind of just introducing all of the
Okay.
people that I'll be mentioning later, but essentially, yes.
So
Both
Chad's
of the
wife
spouses are
is
dead.
dead. Yeah, Lori's husband is dead. And then Alex also dies after killing Lori's husband, which is Lori's brother.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Well,
So
Charles.
Alex Cox was believed to be involved in the burial of Tylee and JJ. His cell phone like has like pings. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but
Mhm.
it can kind of show where you are based on which cell phone tower your phone uses to send out text messages.
Mm-hmm.
There was pings of him near the burial site at the time that they assumed that the kids were being buried. He is also suspected of Tammy Daybell's death on October 19th, 2019. It was technically, so originally when Tammy Daybell died, they called it natural causes. She
Mhm.
died in her sleep, basically. So, but Tammy's body has since been exhumed. As far as I know, they don't have any info on that yet. I'm sure it'll come out during the trial, whether or not there might have been foul play. But I mean, she died in her bed, like we know that. So like, he would have had to like poison her or possibly like smothered her. But Chad, he told, I think, Tammy's mom. So yeah, so Chad told Tammy's mom later that she like had a cough before she died. So he just assumed that she, I don't know, was like really sick, I guess. I don't know. I feel like he didn't
question it enough.
Yeah, maybe. So Alex Cox died December 12th, 2019. A lot of people think it's a suspicious thing that he died before he could testify against anybody. Chad Daybell was married to Tammy until her death in October, and they had 5 children. He basically at one point, so they lived in Utah, and in 2015, he was basically like, God told me to move to Rexburg, Idaho. So they moved to Rexburg, Idaho.
You know how it be. Sometimes God tells you to just move to Idaho. Oh gosh. Okay.
After the time that we now know that Tylee and JJ died, Lori and Chad moved to Hawaii and were married November 5th, 2019, 2 weeks after Chad's wife Tammy died.
Okay, so they moved back to Hawaii?
They
Right.
were, yeah. Mhm.
That is when I remember that the case really took off because everyone was like, your kids weren't on the flight logs to Hawaii. So
well, and they were eventually extradited back to Idaho.
Well, yeah, but I just remember when they flew over there and in the midst of it, they were like, yeah, our kids, like, we haven't seen the kids. No one's seen the kids. And then they were saying, well, if you took a flight to Hawaii, which is the only way you can get to Hawaii except for by boat. So there must be some record somewhere of your kids going with you. Otherwise, you left your kids in like the mainland in the States.
Which,
so
if your children were missing, why would you go to Hawaii?
Well, they weren't missing.
Exactly.
Now at this point, we know that they were already dead. right?
I think
Yeah.
so, yeah. That's horrible.
Ugh.
Um,
And then they were like, they were saying that
they
she
told
died.
yeah, they told people that at one point that Tylee had died in 2017. Like they literally were trying to tell people she was
There
already
would be a
dead.
record of that.
And then they also told a couple other people that Lori didn't have any minor children.
But I guess if you think about it, if she was telling people Tylee had died, but she wasn't really like that suspicious yet to the entire like United States public, you wouldn't really question someone who said that their child had died. You would be like, "Oh, I'm sorry for your loss."
But people
right?
would know. Like these people have friends. Like when somebody dies, it's a big deal in your community,
But
especially
that's why they
Well,
moved to
they were in
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
They moved to Hawaii.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So she was saying that she died in Hawaii.
Yeah, like after they got married, there's like these creepy, terrible, disgusting pictures of them getting married and they're like all happy and smiling and it's like really fucking creepy because you know that they
Had killed their
likely allegedly murdered their kids or they murdered Lori's kids.
or
So
somebody murdered them. Could have been Alex at this point.
I'm saying allegedly because obviously
We
technically
don't
they
know.
haven't been tried yet.
Yeah.
You know,
Someone
get
killed
sued.
their kids ended up dead, buried on his
And
property.
there's a lot of
So,
suspicion.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna kind of get into like a timeline of the events leading up to basically when Tylee and JJ were last seen and then kind of how all of this ended up coming out. So Lori, Tylee, and JJ moved to Rexburg in early September 2019. So up until that point, they lived in Chandler, Arizona.
Okay.
Tylee Ryan was last seen at Yellowstone National Park on September 8th, 2019. She was with Lori and Alex Cox, and I believe JJ was with
There's
them as well.
Alex. See, that guy is
Yeah.
sketchy as hell.
JJ was last seen at school on September 23rd, 2019. So this is like a couple weeks later. Lori called the next day claiming she was withdrawing him in order to homeschool him. So basically he was at school on the 23rd. The next day he wasn't there and Lori called saying like, "Oh yeah, I'm taking him out of school."
Okay, so what's really weird to me about this is I think Lori seems to have some sort of like a god complex. Like she thinks that she's not going to get caught, or she didn't think that she would.
Oh, they definitely thought they wouldn't get caught. 100%.
Like, number one, if you're going to take, I mean, like, why would Lori call the school and say, "Hey, my kid's never coming back to school"? Because then, I mean, I guess in her mind, she probably thought that that would make it less suspicious when he didn't show up like the next day. But I feel like that just makes it more suspicious because then
Well, and
they
it
can
made
go
a
back
paper
and see
trail.
exactly
There's
it's a paper trail.
Yeah.
So now when the trial takes place, they can say, "Oh, well, Lori had already at that point it was already premeditated. She knew that he was going to die and never go back to school."
And it probably would have been fine, but she, like, told them that she intended to take him out of school, and it seems like a cover up. And then she was like, "Oh, my kids just went missing," but like you
Yeah, I see what you're
had
saying.
like lined up a cover story already, which is weird.
So October 1st, Lori signs like a lease agreement for a storage unit. This comes into play later. Tylee appears to have tried to contact Colby Ryan, her half-brother, by sending him a Venmo on October 10th, 2019. And then she sent another one on October 16th. She also texted at one point that she was safe, but she didn't answer any calls from him. And Colby himself at the time, I think, was suspicious that she wasn't the one sending the text messages. So October 2nd.
So
Go
she
ahead.
must have been alive though when she was sending him Venmos. Probably,
I mean,
I would assume.
in theory, yeah.
Because to me, that seems more like she was trying to be secretive and contact somebody. But then by the time that she was texting, "I'm safe," and he wasn't, like, they weren't able to actually call each other, because that to me means that someone else was sending "I'm safe" text message. But I don't know if Lori and whoever was involved with this would have known to send him a Venmo to make it seem
Yeah.
like she was
Right. Do you know if she was requesting or sending money?
I think she sent like money. I couldn't really find how much the amounts were. Like one of them said, "I love you," and then the second one on the 16th of October, it just was I believe it was the kissy face emoji. I can't remember for sure, but
Which sounds like
Interesting.
something that a teenager would send to
yeah,
her
yeah.
half
Well, I
brother.
mean, it's a little weird that she was sending her older brother money on Venmo. And
Eh,
Hannah's kind of right. It's almost like she was trying to like secretly communicate
sneakily
because she didn't think Lori would. I mean,
look
we're
there.
also assuming that she was still alive at this point
Yeah.
True.
because as far as I know, nobody um I don't think they've pinpointed quite yet when JJ and like
They
we know when they
actually
stopped
died.
showing up and like they yeah.
Right.
Um so on October 2nd, there was a drive-by shooting attempt made on Brandon Boudreaux. He is the ex-husband of Melanie, who is Lori's niece. Melanie shared all the doomsday beliefs of Chad and Lori.
Lori.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's so odd to me that they're like basically trying to take out everybody in the family that they don't like, that doesn't
They're
agree with them.
it's very like culty.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, it's
it's
very
very culty.
culty.
Whoever
Very
Okay.
doesn't
culty.
agree with them,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Her nickname is Cult Mom. Like people called her that in a couple of like when the story first broke that she had like done something to her kids basically, they like nicknamed her Cult Mom.
Well, the killing everybody that doesn't agree with you, very culty.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Pinpoint
basically what they're
cult.
doing is they're killing everyone that doesn't have the same beliefs with them so that everyone that does can like join together and be this like great cult family basically is
Was she also part of the LDS church?
So I think they were LDS. I mean, so this Preparing a People organization, who by the way claims they're not a cult, they
Don't they
don't really
always?
they don't have an affiliation with the LDS church as far as I know.
Okay, so they're just
Like,
more like a
Charles
cult.
Vallow just happened to be in the LDS church. I think Melanie and her husband and their
Okay.
kids just
so
happened
it
to be.
seems like
Okay.
maybe Lori was more a part of the LDS church while she was with Charles, but by
Mhm.
the time she met Chad Daybell and he was, because to me that doesn't, his ideals like his doomsday, we got to kill everyone we know that doesn't believe in us,
That's
that
not
doesn't
very
that's not very LDS church like.
right.
That's very cult like mindset. So
Which I think we need to make clear that we don't relate these kinds of behaviors to the LDS church.
no,
Like this
I
is totally cult
I
behavior.
think that it was just Charles Vallow, her husband, happened to be a part of the LDS church, and so when she was married to him, she probably was a part of the LDS church. But
Yeah.
then once she started kind of veering off and going towards these Chad Daybell ideas, she probably wasn't a member of the church, because I don't think Chad was. Doesn't seem like it to me, at least.
So the day that they thought the world would end was July 22nd, 2020, I believe.
Here we are.
Yeah, so that came and went, obviously. So the organization that they were a part of is called Preparing a People, and it's a doomsday cult, essentially. So, like,
Okay.
they were basically preparing for the second coming of Jesus Christ, which I guess in the Bible, so, like, the apocalypse in the Bible is basically, like, Jesus comes, and then, like, some people go to heaven with him, and some people don't, I think.
My main thought, Lori, just in case you're listening. If you thought you were going to go to heaven, why were you killing people or having someone else kill people for you? Okay. Just
Maybe that's why
throwing that
she
out there.
wasn't doing it.
Maybe, and that's why I think she kept using Alex to
Yeah, maybe she thought
take
like
out
it gave
people
her
because
clean hands.
yeah, she was like, I'm not doing it. So she
Fucking psycho.
crazy.
Well,
crazy.
and I mean, Alex Cox died kind of suspiciously, so.
Yeah. Weird. Okay.
So the attempt on Brandon Boudreaux, the car that the shooter was driving was registered to Charles Vallow, who at this point was dead.
Pretty sus.
So it wasn't him that was driving.
Doubtful. October 9th, so this is like a week after the drive-by shooting, an
Mhm.
attempt is made on Tammy Daybell's life. So on October 9th, 2019, Tammy was still alive, right?
Okay.
The gun the shooter used did not go off, and they just fled, basically. She died 10 days later of natural causes, quote unquote. Chad is said to have called her, he called her father, and he was like trying to act all sad about it, basically. On October 25th,
Weird.
Tylee sent a text to a friend. The friend like told, I believe, a reporter from, I think she told a reporter, because I don't think any of this has been in court yet necessarily.
It wouldn't be
But
like a
the
testimony.
friend basically said it didn't sound like she actually wrote it.
Like a teenager.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if she was using too complete of sentences or
I mean,
like
you know,
different words.
If you text somebody a lot, if they're your close friend, we live in an age where most of communication is done through text messaging. And I mean, I would know if one of you guys texted me versus if someone else was like using your phone to text, you know what I mean? Like,
I
because
agree.
we communicate so often. So I don't think that's unusual at all. I think that's totally sounds about right, that it was probably Lori or somebody trying to text and make it seem like she was okay.
Also, a lot of people text how they sound when they speak. Like Hannah is like really like that. Like you very much sound like you in your text messages. So I agree, you would be able to
you would know
tell.
immediately if something was wrong, okay? Just remember that. No, if someone was using my phone to text you.
There's like always those Facebook posts going around like that people will share, and it's like, just so you know, I would never like leave without telling anybody where I was going. And I'm like, isn't that kind of obvious? Like most people wouldn't just leave without telling anybody where they were
I
going, you
would
know?
never. Yeah.
But it's so hard to know what you would do in like a situation. Like, would your first thought be that someone was missing and their parents killed them? Probably
No.
not.
I
So,
would, because I
yeah.
remember when this happened, and I totally thought that these kids had like run away from like maybe an abusive family, maybe for like, I don't know, but
especially
that
because of their ages, because
yeah.
it almost seemed like Tylee, she was older. She was, because JJ was only like 7 or 8.
Yeah,
he was young.
Yeah,
So
he
maybe
was
she
pretty
was
young.
trying to, you know, get him out. I think that that's a reasonable
that's
assumption
what
to
I
make before there
first
wasn't
thought of.
very much evidence.
I personally think it got suspicious when they were Lori and Chad were basically like just telling, like at one point they told the cops that I mean, I'm gonna get to it, but basically, so at one point Colby Ryan, so Tylee and JJ's older brother, and JJ's grandparents, so I think this is like the ones that were related to Charles. I think this is like
So-
Charles's sister and her husband.
Okay.
Is Colby Lori Vallows, or is it Tylee's
Yes.
dad's?
No. Colby is her son from her second
So she
marriage.
birthed Colby. He's an adult though.
Yes, I think by
Okay.
now he must be.
Yeah, because if she's younger,
He's
than
in
him
his
and
like
she
mid
was,
20s, I
17.
believe. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically Colby Ryan and JJ's grandparents kind of like not joined forces, but they both like were starting to wonder where the kids were, basically.
Colby Ryan is her half brother, it says.
It's
Mhm.
Tylee's half brother, yeah. Colby is the first child of Lori. So
Is Tylee's last name Vallow?
it's Ryan.
It's Ryan. Because he
So
adopted
Colby, his last name is Ryan because Joseph Ryan adopted him.
Got
yeah.
it. I remember that.
Joseph
part now.
Ryan is
his
Tylee's
first
full
wife.
Yeah.
Wait, so Colby is from the first husband?
Second. So she married this guy straight out of high school that was like her high school sweetheart. As far as I know, we don't know his name. Then her second husband, she had Colby with him. And
Okay.
I don't even think that his name was originally Colby. Like his original name was Colby Cox.
Okay, so then she married someone with the last
that's
name
her
Ryan,
maiden
and he
name.
fully adopted Colby, and that's why Colby's last name is Ryan now. That makes sense now. Okay.
Huh?
Yeah, so Joseph Ryan, Tylee Ryan's father, was Lori's third husband.
Yeah.
She had Colby with her second husband.
So she's been married 4 times? 5.
5. Chad's her fifth husband.
Holy shit. Okay, that's why I was confused. So Tylee's dad is the third husband.
Yes.
And then JJ is from her fourth marriage because...
But JJ isn't biologically related to Lori. Yep.
Okay, so she had no kids with the first husband.
No.
Yeah, we don't even know who that
Basically
is.
doesn't exist.
I'm
Yeah.
on track now.
Okay.
I didn't know there was 5 people involved. This lady. Woo.
So police conducted a welfare check, because basically JJ's grandma called them and asked them to. They conducted this check on November 26th. So this was, I believe, like so basically they went to Hawaii and got married and came back. And then once they did the welfare check, Lori and Chad were there when they were doing the welfare check. Lori, but then they were like, where are the kids? And Lori said that they were visiting family in Arizona, was her answer. What's funny about that is I think that JJ's grandma lives in Arizona. So like,
She's
I'm
like,
sure in her,
why are they visiting me? Yeah.
Like,
weird.
Who are they? Yeah. And then by the next day, November 27th, Lori and Chad had fled without the children.
I mean,
Hawaii,
this
again, I believe.
entire situation totally screams to me like that they thought they were above the law. They were never going to get caught. They didn't think anything through, and they were just flying by the seat of their pants, hoping to God that no one would catch them. But
well, especially because they were just like pretending like they didn't know where the kids were.
Exactly.
And like they thought nobody would be like, where are your kids?
Yeah. Stupid.
Yeah, and I think that they made it seem like they were like distraught and like worried about where the kids were, which is like weird.
It's suspicious not being worried that your kids aren't home. So
especially when again, I'm gonna bring it back to the age. If Tylee was missing at 17, I could see why maybe she would be like not super concerned. But if your 7-year-old son,
7-year-old autistic son, who
like,
he like was medicated.
Yeah, I mean, you would be concerned. I would hope.
Well, and that's another thing.
If you're a good parent, you'd be concerned.
Basically, it was like they hadn't been giving JJ his autism medication because they found like a prescription bottle for autism meds of some kind, but it had like a bunch left in it and it had never been refilled in Idaho. So like from the time they moved there in September, they hadn't refilled his medication. So he
because they didn't care. They must have premeditated the entire killings because they knew that, and they knew that he wouldn't need it because he was going to be dead. They were going to kill him.
This is so sad.
Yeah,
it's horrible. Pretty sad. Well, and it's funny that you guys mentioned that you kind of remember, like, I don't feel like I remember seeing that much about it until they like arrested Lori, because they arrested Lori long before they thought Chad was involved.
Yeah, I mean, I remember.
Technically, they disappeared before Lori married Chad. So like, I don't think they assumed immediately that they had anything, that they were like in cahoots.
My timeline of this is very like what I actually remember, like when it was happening is kids went missing, which in Idaho, which is like, yeah, whatever. Like that's not super crazy. Kids go missing a lot. Then I remember I found out about her fleeing to Hawaii. And then I was like, okay, this is weird. There is something else going on here. And then she got arrested. And then since then, I don't think there's been a ton of developments in the case because they're still trying to gain, like, they're trying to figure out really exactly what happened. It's so wild what happened that I feel like it's really confusing to try to piece together all the pieces and make sure that these people actually go away to jail for the rest of their lives. So
yeah. So around December, so this is like basically after they do the welfare check and they're starting to really see something suspicious, right? Mm-hmm. So the police officially start looking for missing children in December. They believe Lori and Chad are involved, but they also believe Lori and Chad are involved in the death of Tammy Daybell at this point.
Okay.
This is around the time that they exhumed the body because Tammy had already been buried. Because she died late October. So around the same time that the police started looking for the missing children, Preparing a People started to be like, man, we kind of need to distance ourselves from these people. Because, I mean, for what it's worth, I think Chad and Lori probably took all of that stuff to the extreme, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So they basically like were playing catch up. They were like, we're not a cult, and they like took down all the podcast episodes of Chad and Lori.
Normal people that would listen to this podcast episode or followed this ideals, they probably wouldn't have killed their entire family. So
no, unlikely.
And I'm sure there are issues that Lori and Chad have that aren't related to the podcast.
And I'm not saying I definitely don't know enough about this Preparing a People organization to be like they were not a cult.
Yeah.
But I don't know that they necessarily like were super happy that somebody that claimed to follow their beliefs like killed their children. Right. Or at this time, I mean, technically we didn't know that there was any wrongdoing.
Kids. Yeah.
Okay. So Lori and Chad were questioned in Rexburg in like late December, early January. So we're finally in 2020. So we're this is pretty recent, right?
Okay, yeah.
They after they were questioned though, they returned to Kauai. Hawaii. Kauai is one of the islands, but they abandoned a storage locker. I don't know if you guys remember that from earlier, but it had a lot of the children's belongings in it.
Right.
There is actually like security camera video evidence, I think, of Alex Cox, Lori's brother, helping her like move items in and out of the locker.
Oh.
And we know by now, guys, that Alex Cox is super sketchy. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And when they went back to Kauai in, I think this must have been early January, there was no JJ and Tylee weren't with them. We know that. Like they were not on that plane, straight up.
There were no flight records of them being on that plane, which is like case in point done. Those kids weren't with them. So it to me at this point, it's clear that Lori and Chad know that those kids are never coming back and they're trying to get the hell away so they can figure out how to like run from this case, basically.
Well, but like it's almost like they thought being in Hawaii was like gonna save them. Like you can get extradited from Hawaii. It's in the United States.
You get extradited from different countries. You thought you were gonna get out of the same country.
Why didn't they flee to like a different country? That's a good point. Weird.
They don't seem like the smartest
so here's the thing. I think they weren't that intelligent.
They weren't gonna get caught. They were not thinking everything through, and they were just hoping that everything would go perfect, and it didn't.
Where are these people from originally?
Chad. So Lori was born in California. Chad was born in Utah.
Those sound reasonable.
A judge around this time ordered Lori to produce the children by January 30th. I believe this order was given like mid-January. So he basically was like, you need to get the children here so I can see that they're alive, basically. Obviously she didn't do that because they were already dead. February 20th, 2020, Lori Vallow is arrested in Princeville, Hawaii by the Kauai Police Department and charged with 2 counts of felony desertion of a child, as well as misdemeanor charges of resisting and obstructing an officer, solicitation of a crime, and contempt. She's being held on a $5 million bond pending extradition to Idaho. Good. So at the time I believe they ended up lowering her bond once she was in Idaho to $1 million. Not that
they figured that people in Hawaii could afford $5 million, and then people.
Well, so her lawyer, her lawyer fought for the $1 million bond, but yeah.
No.
March 6th.
Do they even have $1 million in assets to put up?
No, clearly not. She was still in jail.
Do you guys know how bail bonds work? Because I don't. But
she has you can put up assets like your house. You can put it up against it.
Yeah,
and if you show up.
Well, the thing is she wasn't being charged with murder
at this point,
because I don't think they give you a bond for. They don't give you a bail amount if you can't be bailed out if you are charged with murder. I think.
I don't know.
Seemed like it would be crazy if you were.
But the way that bail works basically is if you show up at court, then you get it back. So that's why a lot of people use assets because they don't have the money, but these people don't seem like they would have $1 million in assets.
Well, so Chad owned, so like once Lori got arrested, Chad was like trying really hard to like act like he had nothing to do with it, right? So March 6th, Lori appeared in Madison County Court for the first time. So Rexburg is in Madison County, and then Salem, which is like a smaller town, was
Mhm.
where Chad Daybell's property was, like his
Okay.
house that he lived in with Tammy. And June 10th, Chad appears in court for the first time after the remains are found. So the remains were found after they executed a search warrant. The search warrant was on June 9th. Yeah. And then, yeah, June 10th, he appeared in court. The remains, basically, they were buried in this area that was like a pet cemetery, or it was supposed to be a pet cemetery. They were buried really shallow. Essentially, I think they didn't think anybody would find the graves.
I saw too that if you looked at like from an aerial point of view, you could tell that grass was like newly grown in that patch of land where they were buried. So once you looked at it from aerial, you could see like, okay, yeah, that's probably the place we should dig into and see what's under there. They were found just not like dead, like they were found like Tylee was dismembered and burned. And then JJ was wrapped in black plastic, which was covered in duct tape. So
I wonder if they didn't die on the same day.
no, I don't. I think that's not unreasonable to say. I also want to say that I found something that maybe there was like a skull they could see. So it could be possible that they had been dead for a long time at that point.
Well,
I
I
mean,
one of
so
them.
if they died in September, by June it would be a skeleton.
Yeah.
Their
Tylee went
remains would be
missing
skeletal.
first. That she was last seen earlier.
Mhm.
And so I think that it's totally possible that they killed Tylee first. And if you think about it, if they killed Tylee and JJ knew, then they'd have to kill JJ.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't know. This makes me so sad.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty
fucked
sad.
up.
So when they got to where they could tell somebody had been buried, the police started by removing a top layer of earth on a 4-foot by 2-foot patch of grass that was shorter than the rest. So like Hannah said, it was new.
Mm-hmm.
There was like these large flat rocks underneath the soil, and then below the soil there was like pieces of wood paneling, and below that a layer of black plastic.
Which was where JJ was.
Yes.
And,
So one of the crime scene investigators, he cut a hole in the plastic, and then below the black plastic was some like white plastic, like a plastic bag. They cut through that, and they could see hair. So they started being able to see like brown hair, which was the same color as JJ Vallow's.
mm-hmm.
And that was JJ's body. He was wrapped in a plastic bag, a black plastic bag, and it was wrapped in duct tape. There was another team of investigators who were searching like a different part of the yard.
Mm-hmm.
This is okay. So JJ was found in a different area. I was incorrect. The other part of the yard was basically like a pet cemetery. The Daybell family had buried animals there because
Mm-hmm.
they dug up a cat and a dog.
Oh, so like a personal pet cemetery.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, I was thinking
Like Pet Cemetery, the movie.
yeah, that movie's. I had to turn that one off. John and I were like, no.
Dude, that's a scary ass movie. Like, I don't get scared that easily, but like I haven't seen that many Stephen King movies that weren't like scare your pants off.
I didn't even know it was Stephen King. We didn't make it very far because I was like, I can't.
No, we gotta watch it. It's good.
Okay, I'll try again.
Anyway, so underneath once they dug up a couple animals, they finally found some things that were kind of weird, right? So they found a melted bucket like buried in the ground, right? And under this bucket was a partial human skull.
Okay, yeah. I knew there was something that had to do with the skull.
Yeah, and it's partial, right? So, I mean, again, this is getting kind of terrible. Not that it wasn't terrible before, but this skull belonged to Tylee Ryan.
And that means they broke it in half if it's partial? Like,
Well, so, and it's hard to basically, because by the time they found him, it was skeletal remains. So
Well, and
it was hard to tell how she died.
a melted bucket, maybe there was something with like acid, like some sort of like chemical
involved.
used to like
Well, and
deteriorate the body quicker. I don't
the
know.
fact that the skull was found kind of by itself, like that's probably why they assumed that
That she was
whoever,
dismembered.
yeah, she was
Yeah.
dismembered.
It's
Oh,
And they
weird
could
melted
to
tell,
bucket.
me.
It says that they think that she was burned partially too. So that would make
yeah,
sense why there was a melted bucket. Okay.
yeah.
So it's weird to me that they did it differently. That because if
It's
the same
because
person,
I think it's because when they had the opportunity, they did it. When they had the opportunity to make the like killing, they just did it with whatever they had.
but they
You know what I mean?
buried. It's weird to me that they buried her normally, and then they buried him in plastic, which is the only reason that they could even see hair and like his skin.
But
Because
it must have been because of the way that they killed them.
do they know? They don't know cause of death for either.
Not yet. It's not like officially
I
like
wonder if that's how they killed JJ, was they suffocated him,
maybe.
which is
Maybe,
horrible,
yeah.
but it's possible.
Like a lot of people were like, wow, she is awesome for taking him. Because I'm assuming that, so Charles's sister, Kay Woodcock, I think she maybe was just too old to care for him properly, would be my guess. Because I mean, it's a big undertaking, like depending on how advanced thought, like it sounds so terrible to even bring it up, but I'm sure that he required a lot of care, right?
Well, and I mean, just from like a grand scheme of things, it's not all that often that people adopt children who have special needs, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
of any type.
It
So
also is a
even extra medical needs that aren't like
Mhm.
that don't have any developmental delays.
Due to COVID, we're pretty much up to date, right? So there hasn't been a ton going on since like June, like case wise, right? Uh Apparently though, just recently, so like late October, they decided to combine Chad and Lori's trials essentially because a lot of the things they were being charged with were identical, right?
Mm-hmm.
And up until this point, I believe it was Daybell's lawyers, like basically were like, we don't want the trials to be combined because the media coverage is way too high. No, there's no way he'll get a fair trial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mm, but they're so like deeply intertwined that they
Mm-hmm.
need to be combined.
And
Well,
as
and
more evidence comes out, there people are realizing, and it's being realized by anyone that has any involvement in the case, that they were more or less conducting these murders together. Even if they weren't both physically killing somebody together, it was them working together for like this greater scheme of things.
yeah. Well, and so Lori didn't object to their trials being combined. It's kind of sounds like Chad was like basically just jumping ship, right? He was
Yeah,
kind of
trying to get
just
out of
like
there.
every man for his own, like, but Lori was like, I don't know that she wanted their cases to be or their trials to be combined, but she definitely didn't object to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually one of the reasons, that's one of the reasons that the judge cites that he decided to combine the trials. Their combined trial, I don't think they set a date for it yet, but the original separate trials were supposed to start like next March or April, I believe. Again, the delay is probably because of COVID. This also like super recent news story that I was reading said that there was like audio of Lori talking, and she was saying that she was going to murder her ex, Joseph Ryan. It was at a religious meeting of LDS members, and it seems that she justified the idea. So basically, I think at one point, Lori was pretty vocal in the LDS church because she had started forming all these ideas about
Mm-hmm. End times,
doomsday
yeah.
and, you know. so she was speaking at like a religious meeting in the church, and she was talking about how you could justify killing anybody, I think, for religious reasons. Ryan
Yikes.
was already dead at this point. He died of a heart attack by the time this recording
Allegedly.
was made. So the recording was made after he was already dead, but it basically, she sounds really suspicious. Like she thought it was fine for her to kill him, basically.
Talking about Joseph Ryan?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that what I said?
Yeah.
I was just
okay.
making sure you weren't talking about Colby.
Oh. So a little bit more about like their alleged beliefs, right? So Lori and Chad were part of Preparing a People. This a lot of the like information we know about Preparing a People and like how involved Lori and Chad were comes from Melanie Boudreau, who is like in this same cult, right? And she used to be married to this guy named Brandon. They separated, and he is currently, I believe, fighting for custody. A lot of these custody hearings were happening kind of like parallel to a lot of the Lori and Chad trials, or not trials, hearings. Brandon claimed that Melanie would often talk about how like the kids like just in general, I think she would basically say like they could just go dark at any moment, like kids are really susceptible to evil, and like basically like saying like if your kid seems like they have evil in them, you can just kill them, right? Melanie at one point was told by Chad and Lori that Chad and Lori believed the kids had been possessed and had become zombies. This is from another news story I read.
Melanie, by the way, I don't know if you mentioned in this portion, that's Lori's niece. So I know we mentioned that earlier when there was the drive-by to try to kill Brandon. But Melanie is Lori's niece. So they're related. So
Who is also like culty.
She's a part of the same belief.
Cult.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, that's essentially like current day, right? Today. So yeah. They haven't set the combined trial date. I'm sure even more stuff is going to come out between now and the trial date, and then perhaps during the trial, because there's probably a lot of things that the defense or the prosecution are kind of hiding, and they're gonna gonna come out during the trial, probably.
And there are so many people dead in this story. Tylee and Ryan, obviously. Then now we know Joseph Ryan's dead of a heart attack, quote unquote. Tammy Daybell's dead. Charles Vallow is dead. So like, what's that? 5 people now that are dead suspiciously?
And like, what is the common denominator in all of these people? Lori and Chad.
Yeah, exactly. So I predict that, first of all, this trial is going to go on for freaking ever. And because they're going to try to get them on everything that they can, which at this point, I would want all of these people's like medical records to come up and see if like this is actually, because to me, just because like Abby said, they have the common denominator of Lori and Chad, all of these people's deaths need to be reevaluated because they're suspicious just because they knew they were family or friends, family of Lori and Chad. Crazy.
Totally.
Crazy trial.
A lot of, just like a disclaimer, a lot of this information I got from the subreddit on Lori Vallow. So r/Lori Vallow. But I also just read like a ton of news stories. There is a really good like timeline of everything, because like there's a lot of stuff like happening at once, right? And especially like all the suspicious deaths, like it's hard to keep them straight, kind of. So there was like a really good timeline on postregister.com. I got a lot of information from that. And then, just various news articles. There's a Wikipedia page called The Deaths of Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. As far as I know, they haven't made any like documentaries or anything
It's
about
only
this
a
yet,
matter of
but
time.
yeah.
I'm sure. So
I'm sure
honestly,
they're waiting because
I think they're
technically-
waiting
Yeah.
till
Technically, nothing is. Technically, nobody's been convicted of murder.
Yeah, and
currently.
we also should probably just throw out there that a lot of the stuff that we have mentioned is like how we are interpreting what we know, and there's a lot of like blank spaces of things that'll get filled in slowly as they exhume bodies and that kind of thing, and so we can't say for certain that Chad and
no, we don't
Lori are
technically
guilty.
know. Yeah.
But
Well,
I think
so
it's
we'll-
of our opinion
They're
Yeah.
suspicious
that we
for
think
sure.
that they might have done it. So
But yeah, anyway, that was our episode on Lori Vallow, aka cult mom, aka scum of the earth, aka pretty much worst mom ever that you could ever think of in your life.
go
You
thank
guys
your
can
mom for not murdering you today.
yeah, what the heck? I just from what I know about parents, there is really not a lot of doubt in my mind that something happened, right? Like the fact that like Lori was so unbothered by a lot of this is
And
first
just
of all
went to
absolutely
Hawaii.
disgusting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like and got married and like
No, it's
yeah,
it's super clear that to me it's 100% clear that there was
Wrongdoing on their
heavy involvement of Lori and Chad in all of these people's deaths
part.
in some
So-
way or another.
And I will say, not that this necessarily like means anything, but I think it's like a little weird that Lori's been married so many times, and I wonder if she had a lot of these like crazy ideas and like all of this, and then she met Chad and like he somehow like solidified those beliefs, right?
Yeah.
Well,
He like
because
gave
if
them
she met
Very
someone
Yeah.
that had the same beliefs as her, and they both are clearly mentally unstable, and so when they found somebody that had the same beliefs as them, they're like, well, it's us against the world now. Let's take over. Let's kind of take everyone out and make it
well,
so.
and she literally like she called the children zombies, and like I wonder if on some I'm gonna get into JJ again, but like I think on some capacity she literally thought this kid's autism like meant he was possessed in some way, which is just like absolutely terrible. And I
Mhm.
kind of wonder if like Tylee was trying to like
Protect him.
protect him, right? Because
Probably.
like they had grown up together. So I wonder if like I don't know. It just sucks. I mean, there's a lot of things to wonder, but I think what we do know is that Lori and Chad fucking suck, and hopefully they rot in jail.
Yay.
I think that like I mean I was 17 very recently, and I would above all else protect my I don't have one, but autistic brother in general that was younger than me, and I think that she definitely, it seems like she was kind of protecting him and got caught in the crossfire maybe of Lori's hatred for JJ.
Well, because at this point, Tylee could have just left. She could have ran away and like
But she didn't
never.
want to, yeah.
She couldn't leave JJ. I think that's a good point. That's probably part of it. So I
Well,
guess
and
Which
like
is, yeah.
we
in the trial, if because at some point Lori's gonna have to start talking and say what happened, and she'll be able to recollect, hopefully, that her daughter was trying to save JJ. Maybe.
well, so it's you bring that up, and I feel like Lori's gonna sing like a canary. I think Chad's gonna deny until they convict him on testimony alone. Like I don't think he's ever gonna admit to anything. Lori, however, I can kind of see her
it seems
maybe
like she's
last
already
minute trying to save her
talking a
ass,
lot.
you know?
Yeah, it seems
Or-
like she's already been talking a lot about what's been happening just with other people,
So
or
I
what her
think
thoughts were.
she'll either try to save her ass, blame it on Chad, or Alex maybe, but he's dead. So, but or she'll. I think it's also possible that she could just like once she gets caught, like she feels like she's gotten caught, she'll just open up and she'll be like, "But I did it because I'm insane."
Clearly,
or
she's mentally
She
unstable, so
might
she's
she
gonna try
might
to
claim insanity.
I
Yeah.
think she
Yeah.
will, but I also think that she truly believes that this was okay. You know what I mean? Like, I think
Which,
she
I
might
mean, so
really
that's
think that.
that's what an insanity plea is, right? So like,
Exactly. And I think I mean, I want her to go to jail, but she seems insane to me. I'm not a psychologist,
I
but
don't know though, man. Like she did all of this purposefully and she knew what she was doing.
totally.
She knew they were gonna
Exactly.
die. She knew she buried them. She knew she was trying to redirect the police. Like, I don't know.
And I don't
Anyway,
really know what the like premises for insanity in a court are,
Mhm.
but personally, this lady sounds insane. And so it would seem to me like she's definitely guilty because she definitely willingly did all of these things if she gets proven guilty, but she also seems very crazy.
yeah. All right. Well, we'd love to hear what you guys think of this case. You can follow us on Instagram at Who What Where Podcast. We're going to be posting some relevant pictures over on there. And you guys can always just send us a DM. You can comment on. We'd love if you followed us. You can also watch the video version of this podcast on YouTube. We are on there at Who What Where Podcast. And yeah, we would love to hear your thoughts. So let us know over on social media, and we will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in, guys.